Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and I've got a great show this evening. It's, of course, August 1st, already into another month, and I don't know where the summer's going, but it certainly is going fast. And I'm just happy today, though, that we actually had some sunshine here in Florida. Got a little bit of rain earlier in the morning, but it cleared up and turned out to be a nice afternoon. I'm very excited this evening. I've got joining me tonight here live is an absolutely fantastic young lady, Meredith Kirk, and I'm going to bring her out here in a minute. Very excited to be joined by her. She epitomizes the term hard work. This young lady is just a consummate professional. I've sort of followed her along on the different, as I was just mentioning to her off the air, through a lot of the different social media sites and things like that. I see her hard at work. She's, as I said, a consummate teaching professional, and I'm going to bring her here in a minute. She's the owner of Meredith Kirk Golf. She's also a media specialist, a member of the LPGA, and she's a USGTF Level 3 certified golf professional, and an author, and also the mother of 3 boys, which that alone is a feat of miraculous I don't even know how to put it into words, but certainly a wonderful person. I'm excited to have her. So welcome to the show, Meredith.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here today.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Meredith, just before, as I just mentioned a few moments ago, before we get into sort of the meat of tonight's show, I just want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about what it is that you're doing in the golf world right now. Obviously, the listeners know that you're a teaching professional and that you're doing some other things in the golf area. And then we'll give the website and contact information out as the show progresses. But just tell us a little bit about what it is that you've been doing and kind of the direction that you're going in right now with your business.
Wow, I have been very busy. I have a number of things on my plate right now, but I'm having a lot of fun doing each one, and I'm managing each one by God's grace. To start with, I'll talk about junior golf a little bit. This past year, this is the second year we had the program of the PGA Junior League Golf. And it was a very successful program. We just finished up on Monday, and our team in Myrtle Beach got second in state, so we're really excited about that. And that program is just growing tremendously, and the kids are amazing. So that is a project that I have worked on these past 2 years, and it's been a lot of fun. And these kids are great. So now that that's kind of coming to an end, going into the fall, I'm going to be focusing a lot on a new magazine in Myrtle Beach called Endless Golf Myrtle Beach. And it's basically a local magazine that anybody can pick up in Myrtle Beach pretty much at any golf course and at retailers and such. And it's just about local golf news and some national news, and just gives a lot of information of golf instruction, health and fitness, lots of really cool stuff. And I had this opportunity that came along the way a few months ago, and I love writing and I love media work, and I thought, I can't pass this up. This is a great opportunity. So I've been working a lot on the magazine. And also I'm a creative media specialist for National Golf Management. National Golf Management is a management company that owns and operates 22 courses here in the Myrtle Beach area. And they are just an amazing company to work for. And it's funny, back in 2011, when I first connected with them, they asked me to do some golf video tips, and I've never done tips on TV or anything. And so I kind of got swept into media about 2 years ago. And these wonderful people have mentored me, and they have given me so many amazing opportunities to meet so many wonderful people in the sports industry. And, I get to do interviews and all this exciting stuff, and I just feel so blessed, and I'm so thankful where I'm at in my career right now.
Yeah, and just to let the listeners know, I've watched a number of your video tips on YouTube and obviously off of your sites and things like that, and they are certainly top quality. Meredith, let me just interrupt us here for a quick second. I just noticed here we've got actually somebody on hold. Somebody wants to call into the program, as we so often like to get some calls. Let me just take this call and see if they've got a question for us or if they just want to say hello.
Sure.
Welcome to Golf Talk Live. You're on live here with Ted and Meredith. Who am I speaking to?
Good evening, Ted and Meredith. This is Gypsy calling. I just wanted to call in to say hi to one of my favorite people in the world, Meredith Kirk. She's just such a wonderful woman. Hi, Meredith. How are you?
Hey. Oh, it's great. So good to hear your voice. I'm so glad you called in.
Yeah, I wanted to. I saw that we were going to be on, and I just, I thought how cool that was. I mean, they're lucky to have you on. I mean, this woman is the most amazing woman. She's got more things on her plate, and she gets them all done. It's uncanny, being a mom, being a golf person, being spiritual like she is, being a great wife. She's just an unbelievable person,
You're too kind. Thank you so much for those words and your encouragement. It keeps me going.
Yeah, I'm glad, and I'm glad I could call in. I didn't even know the show. Yes?
Well, Gypsy, just let me ask you, just before you go here, I hope that you'll continue to tune in to the rest of the program here. We're going to get into, as I mentioned to Meredith before we came on live, we're going to talk a little bit about tonight about how to get golf ready. In other words, how to get ready for a round, and also some of the common mistakes that the average golfer makes during the round. So I hope you'll tune in for the rest of that, and I appreciate you calling in and saying hello to Meredith. I know that she obviously appreciates and enjoys your support, and as do I. Thank you for tuning into the program.
Great. I'll be listening to it. Have a great show.
Bye,
Thank you.
Bye, Meredith.
All right, bye-bye. All right. Well, that was a great way to start off a program with some inspirational words from a good friend, and we're gonna move with that momentum here, Meredith. And let's let me just go back to the magazine for a second, and also let me actually digress a little bit further and go back to the videos. Just to let listeners know, I have watched a number of your videos, and you certainly don't act like you haven't had much training in that area. You certainly are very professional on them, and I'm much like you, was in the same boat when I first got into the golf business on more of a business level. My partner and I developed an iPhone app where we had to sort of get thrust in front of the camera and shoot a number of instructional videos. So I know exactly where you're coming from when you're not used to that sort of form. It takes a little while to build up to it, but you certainly did a great job, Meredith.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm a work in progress.
Well, you know what? Keep working at it, and I know that you're going to continue to be successful in that area as well. But just going on to the magazine, I looked briefly before we came on the program tonight, and I looked at the magazine, and it certainly you did a fantastic job in your team to put this together. And I know that you obviously did a lot of it on your own, but it's certainly a great magazine, and I've been to the Myrtle Beach area a number of times, and it's probably the premier golf. Now, I know that I'm going to get a lot of flack from that living in Florida because Florida is kind of in competition. So let me just say they're on equal footing, but certainly Meredith, Myrtle Beach has always been known for its golf, and I played there a number of times with friends, and just over the years we did our annual trek. And just in case you weren't aware of this, Meredith, I'm originally from Canada, so we made quite the pilgrimage down to Myrtle Beach, and we would get actually we came down the one year with two foursomes, and had a great time. Stayed for 7 days and played 6 rounds of golf, and just had a fantastic time. So for those of you that aren't familiar or haven't been out that way yet, you need to definitely go to Myrtle Beach and check out this magazine that Meredith is involved with, Endless Golf, and I'm sure she'll have some great information to give in the magazine itself. But let's what are some of the other things that you're doing right now?
Well, other than the junior golf in the magazine, I'm still teaching. My teaching schedule is not as busy as I was about a year ago, and now I kind of have a waiting list of students. But I'm okay with that. I'm just teaching about 1.5 to 2 days a week right now. And what I'm doing is I'm just, telling my students, hey, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks I can meet up with you again. And I actually touch base with a lot of my students through email and text. I'm totally okay with that. So, sometimes they'll shoot me a text, I'm doing this, and then I'm like, shoot me a video, and I'll just analyze it right there on the spot. So that keeps me involved in teaching. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, I work with National Golf Management, doing a lot of creative media for them and writing articles and filming and doing interviews, and I absolutely love that job. And we have the Know Your Score tournament coming up at the Grand Dunes. That's going to be August 24th, and so that's going to be really exciting. It's a celebrity pro-am, and I'll have the opportunity to do some interviews and kind of cover that story, and that's always exciting.
Make sure that you, Meredith, send me maybe a little snippet to my email after the program about that particular tournament, and I'll make sure that between now and when the tournament plays that I'll plug it on the show for you. How's that?
That would be great. And, also bringing awareness to the prostate cancer.
Right.
It's a big thing, and it's an important thing, and getting more awareness out there. And they have this annually. So if people miss it this year, they can look for it next year. Perfect.
Yeah, send me an email with all the particulars on that, and I'll make sure that I get that on the show. And it's August 24th, you said?
August 24th.
Okay, so it's
at
coming
the
up
Grand
in okay.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks.
So exactly. So if you can send the details about it, I'll make sure that in addition, I'll let you plug it again before the show airs or ends this evening, but I'll make sure that I plug it in the next few weeks before the tournament actually takes place. Just to give it a little bit extra coverage for you. How's that?
Sure, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so as I mentioned, to those of you that are just tuning into the program right now, my very special guest this evening is Meredith Kirk, the owner of Meredith Kirk Golf. And as I mentioned, she's has many I guess, skills and abilities. One of it being is she's obviously a media specialist, but she's an LPGA member and also a USGTF Level 3 certified golf professional, and is busy just doing all kinds of great things to promote this terrific game that I'm involved with. I also am a member of the USGTF and just love getting the word out there about golf and having people enjoy the game and bringing new people in, especially juniors, because that's where obviously the game is going to continue to grow and develop. Let's talk a little bit, Meredith. I picked a couple of topics that I wanted to really get into tonight with you, and the first one is getting golf ready. And just so that you understand where I'm coming from, those that are tuning in, what I want to talk about in this sort of topic, if you will, is what are some of the things that people need to do in order to get ready for a round. And here's just a couple of things. I'll just sort of break down. I wrote 4 down here that I want to talk about, and then we can kind of expand on it. Number one being is obviously you want to start, especially if you're playing in a morning round, you want to start with a good breakfast. And the reason why I'm saying is obviously you want to focus on nutrition. People that don't focus on nutrition are not going to have a good round. And the reason why I say that is if you're rushing out in the morning to get to the course and things like that, and you're not really preparing yourself before you get out to play, you're not going to have an enjoyable round. So that's one area, and we'll come back to that in a minute. The next one is make sure that you get to the course early so that you have some time to warm up. You want to stretch out before any time you're playing, and I usually recommend that you not only stretch out before, but I like to stretch out a little bit after too, because even though your muscles are warmed up, so we'll get back to that a little bit more. And then also be prepared. As Jack Nicklaus talked about in his very well-known video from years back, Golf My Way, he talked about being prepared. And that's, making sure that you pack things properly. You've got enough golf balls, tees, your repair tool, gloves, that sort of thing. So those are kind of the things, and there may be some other things, Meredith, that you want to throw in here. But let's talk about nutrition. How important is nutrition to playing good golf?
Oh, nutrition is so important. And one thing that I would suggest, going out there in the morning and playing is just kind of stay away from a lot of heavy carbs. And also stay away from caffeine. I like to have a little bit of jolt in my coffee. And so what I do is, it sounds funny, I drink about 2 to 3 cups of coffee every day. And I can't give that up. But I use decaf. I use a dark roasted decaf to kind of make me feel like I have real coffee. And then 1 spoonful of caffeinated. And if I have more than that, I'm just very sensitive. And I know a lot of tour players are sensitive. People I know who are just very avid golfers, and a few tour players, they avoid it, because you get the shapes and you have that rush of energy, and then you start to come down from it, and it's inconsistency with your body. Also, incorporating protein before you go out instead of a lot of carbs, it's much better for your blood sugar levels. Again, you want consistency and stability, and to do that, it is really a lot of that's in nutrition.
Well, exactly, and I mean, obviously, it's not just about playing golf that you need to focus on good nutrition. It's for every facet of your life, but I think particularly when you're involved in any kind of sport, and a lot of people don't really understand, golf takes a lot of energy. I mean, you may not be running up the hills, or you may not be running from one end of a field to another like you do in many other sports, but it does consume a lot of energy. I mean, for those of you that are walking, you're walking 18 holes. That's several miles. Depending on how good of a shot you are, you may be walking many miles, but you're still using a lot of energy, and the golf swing in itself requires a lot of force and momentum in that to swing properly. And if you have low energy or you're just not sort of fueled up for the day, by the time you get to the turn, you're about ready to quit.
Exactly.
And so I agree. I think nutrition is important, and I think not loading up on carbs and things like that in the morning, having something, and really
you want protein.
have to.
Yeah, you want protein mixed in with everything. Yeah.
Exactly. And I just think that's really sort of the key to starting out your day is start with a good breakfast. You don't have to eat a lot, but just like Meredith said, have some protein in there. Don't load up on the carbs, and certainly don't load up on a lot of sugar and things like that. Some people might think, well, I'll just eat this bar or something like that. And there are certainly some good protein bars on the market, but there's also a lot of knockoffs that have come out that are just loaded with sugars and things like that, right. And that's going to help to get you hopped up. And as Meredith said, drink decaf, and if you want to put a little jolt in there, that's okay. But the last thing you want to be doing is getting up there, especially it's nerve-wracking enough on the first tee for most golfers, even the top guys and gals. But, if you're up there and you're shaking and trembling because you've had 3 cups of highly caffeinated coffee, you're not going to play well. And by about the 3rd or 4th hole, when it starts to wear off, you're going to be looking for that next cup, and you're going to be too far away from the clubhouse, and the cart girl hasn't warmed up the cart yet. So,
that's right.
But nutrition, obviously, and having that good meal to start off the round is one way to get golf ready. The second one is getting to the course early. I don't know how many times, and I'm sure you've experienced this, Meredith, where you've pulled up to play or in your case, teach and things like that, and you'll see people just speeding up the driveway of the golf course into the parking lot. They're fumbling with their stuff. They're running into the clubhouse, loading up, and they're, maybe if they're lucky, they might have 5 minutes to get, and they'll hit 1 or 2, quick shots and maybe a putt or 2, and then they're right to the first tee because they're late.
Oh, yeah.
And
I see that all the time.
Exactly. And I understand, and just let me preface it, and I'll let you chime in more. But, I think one of the problems is that our lives have become so preoccupied with so many different things and just so busy that we're trying to take on too many tasks, I think, sometimes, and, not allowing that time. If you're going to play golf, it needs to be an enjoyable experience, and the way to do that is to get there unrushed, get there on time, and have some time to practice beforehand. Go ahead, Meredith.
I totally agree with you. Our society keeps us quite busy at times, and when you go play golf, you need to be relaxed. You need to be relaxed. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a fun game. You need to go out there and have fun, and it's definitely a game that you can't rush. Golf is interesting. It will challenge you, and when you're challenged like that, you got to be in a good state of mind and just staying in the present, being prepared, preparing the night before, laying out your clothes, knowing that this is your time. When you go play golf, this is your moment, and try not to let anything else steal that, Well, and that means turning off your cell phone. Turning off the cell phone, because I can't stand hearing the cell phones ringing when I'm out on the course. And if I'm thinking, just turn it off. If you can't come out here and play golf for 4 hours, then you might as well just drive back to the office. It's really not worth it.
Yeah, and that's true. And unfortunately, in this high-tech world, especially with things like texting and that sort of thing, there's nothing worse. I've been in a few times. A lot of times I'll go to a course, obviously have some, foursome that I'll play with a lot of times, but there'll be other times when maybe they're not available or schedules conflict, and I'll go out there and I'll just join in with somebody, and there's nothing more frustrating than getting in a cart with somebody that's sending about 4,000 texts over the course of the 18 holes, and you're okay, Bob, you're up, and yeah, hang on a second, I just got to respond to this, and half the time it's a bunch of garbage. It's not even like it's, they're developing the next, cure for something. They're updating their profile or something on Facebook.
Right.
And I've actually gotten to the point where you guys go ahead and I'll try and catch in with another group, or I'll even dismiss the whole round if it's, depending on where I'm playing and the circumstances. But it's frustrating because it's rude, it's ignorant, it's disrespectful, and actually it adds to slow play because people are too distracted. They're not focusing on what they need to do, which is to play the game.
Exactly. And golf needs to be a great experience. It's the experience that makes the game so beautiful. And you need to be and to play well, you want to be, you need to be kind of in that zone where you're taking everything in. You're taking, shot by shot, moment by moment. And, having interruptions it's not going to induce a good game of golf.
No, and getting early enough to warm up, obviously let me add a few things about the warm-ups. When you're playing, let's say if you're playing this Saturday, when you get to the course on Saturday morning or whatever time before your tee-off time, be there at the very least, 30 minutes to 45 minutes before you play. And the reason why I say that, I like to be there even earlier, but, obviously schedule's permitting, but at least 30 minutes because you want to have time to get your shoes on and get things organized. But then you want to be able to get out on the range. You're not obviously there to reinvent the swing or anything like that. You're just there to warm up, loosen up the muscles, maybe do a few stretches, and just hit a few balls, do some putting. And I always believe, I get too many people that spend the whole time hitting their driver because they're nervous about that first tee shot, and they spend their whole range session, focusing on the driver and then maybe one or two quick putts. And, probably 75% of their round is going to be 100 yards and in.
Exactly.
And they haven't even warmed up in that area, so their chipping muscles aren't sort of adjusted, and their pitching and that sort of thing, and their putting stroke is kind of sketchy at best, but they're hitting a few good drives out there, and that's all they seem to focus on. And I think it's just a mentality that everybody's been sort of programmed to how far they can hit the ball, and they're not really focusing on what I think is one of the most important areas of golf, and that is your short game.
Oh, I totally agree. And, if you think about the driver, you really only have the opportunity to use your driver 14 times,
right,
during one round. So if you take out those par threes. And some of those par fours, depending on if it has a dog leg right or left, you're not going to use the driver. You're going to use like a 3-wood
right,
or maybe a different club. So there's definitely a misconception about the driver. It's very overrated. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but a lot of tour players are not using their driver as much. There's a lot of them that are using their 3-woods more now off the tee because of the technology and advancement of technology. So, we really do now more than ever need to focus on the short game. Half the strokes for par come from putting alone, if you're playing par golf. So, I like to get on the putting green, and I like to know how the greens are rolling. That's very important for me.
Exactly. And I think that, really if you've only got, say, 20 minutes before your round and that's what you're going to dedicate to, really you don't even need to have that long. But if you are going to spend that much time before a round, you really do need to focus the majority of it on your putting, maybe some short chip shots around onto the green, that sort of thing, because those are things you're going to be faced with. As Meredith said, you're only going to be hitting maybe at best 14 shots with your driver. So why are you spending 15 of the 20 minutes on the driving range hitting your driver and 5 minutes or less in some cases, pitching or chipping or on the putting surface when that really focuses on the majority of your round? And everybody seems to have it backwards. And that's probably why they're not improving.
Exactly. I think, and again, in our society, we're so wired for instant gratification.
Right.
It's like nothing like pulling out that big driver ahead and just knocking it 250, 300 yards, right? I think it's just that gratification. It feeds our egos.
Yeah. Well,
so
and
we got to transfer that to the putting green.
Right. And I think that's something that, as you just mentioned, a lot of the tour players, why they've pulled away is they're starting to realize that even though they've lengthened a lot of courses, if you're getting somebody like a Bubba Watson or some of these other ones that are, belting at 300-plus yards, it really takes a lot of holes out of play because what ends up happening is they're in the rough or they're in, some other trouble. They might think they're driving over those fairway bunkers, but it brings out, a whole myriad of problems, because a lot of courses now what they're doing is beyond that reachable area, they're narrowing the fairways because they know the pros can reach it with these big drivers. So when you've got a narrow fairway now you're bringing in, some rough and maybe some other, penalty bunkers they put out there. So you're really not gaining anything. And I think the pros are starting to realize that, and they're more focused on positioning the ball, getting it into play, and gearing up, because they can reach them in two. Most of the tour players can reach pretty much all the holes, even the par fives, in two anyway. So even without a driver.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it comes back to course management, and
right.
Longer is not necessarily better. I mean, it's just not. Again, it's just control and consistency. That's how you win. Control and
right.
consistency.
So remember, for those of you listening out there, one of the things, number 2, in order to get golf ready, is you need to get to the course early enough to allow yourself some sufficient time to warm up and practice and get ready for your round. There's a lot of things involved in that. But as Meredith said, and as I am sort of reaffirming, spend most of your time on the putting green, and maybe doing a little chipping and pitching as well, and maybe hit a few drives towards the end. Spend that last 5 minutes, if you want, hitting your driver, but don't do it the other way around, because I think you're going to find you have a much more enjoyable, you're going to get those golf muscles geared up for putting and geared up for some of your other shorter shots, which is really where you're going to spend most of your time anyways. So that's one thing you want to do. Number 3, Meredith, I think is a very simple one, but stretching your muscles. Again, this sort of falls into number 2, I guess, a little bit, is people rushing to get to the course. They don't really warm up. Their muscles are a little cool. They're not really loose and stretched out yet, and they just start playing, and they wonder why they're getting back injuries and that sort of thing. So expand a little bit on that, and what do you feel are some good things that we should be doing to get ready for the round?
Definitely taking practice swings before hitting a ball, and I do what's called a swing dance. What I do is I just take the club and I go back and forward, and I do it continuously, like 15 times, and I just go back and forth, and that warms the muscles up. Again, just stretching really good. Another little trick. Now, I've never shared this with anybody, so I'm giving you guys a new tip right now. But in the morning, if you take a hot shower and if you have enough room, do stretching with the hot water, especially if you have a tea time that's really early, like 7:30 or 8.
Yes.
You'd be amazed at how much faster you can stretch out when you have hot water on you. It's just like a hot tub, basically. You can really stretch those muscles more quickly.
Especially your big, because even though you're using a lot of different muscles in the golf swing, particularly your back and your lower back muscles really engage, and obviously even your glutes engage a lot. And if those muscles are all tensed up, as you say, and especially if you've got an early tee time, and it's a little cool out there. I mean, even in the south here, you get an early morning tee time. It can be a little frosty sometimes, especially in the fall months. And if you're out there and you're stiff and cold and whatnot, you're more apt to and prone to injuries. So that's a great tip, and that's an exclusive here on Golf Talk Live. Meredith's giving us a tip that you want to make sure you take note of. Let me just quickly, before we continue on, Meredith, for those of you that are tuning in, I'm with my special guest this evening, Meredith Kirk, owner of Meredith Kirk Golf. And for those of you that want to call in, the number to call in is 646-716-4667. Or if you want to email a question in, if you're a little shy about calling in, that's not a problem. You can email me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And certainly happy to share any questions or comments that you may have with Meredith here online. And don't forget, if you're surfing around Facebook, as I know many of you are doing throughout the day, make sure that you visit the Golf Talk Live Facebook page and throw a few likes our way. And it's actually facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog. Make sure you have the blog on the end there so that it takes you directly to the page. And I'm also on Twitter. Why, I have no idea, but I'm on there anyways. And it's my Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO. So you can find me on there. And I always post through the various social media sites, and particularly Twitter, focus on the dates and schedules of the program. So make sure that you check me out there. And if you want to be a guest, if you're a teaching professional or somebody in the golf industry, you can also email me at that email address, and it's ted.golftalklive@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to connect with you and have you on the program as well. Meredith, let's keep moving down here. the last one here that I put down, and as I mentioned and gave credit to Mr. Nicholas, was to be prepared for the round, packing things. He always packed a little snack, maybe a sandwich or even a banana or something. I know you've got to be careful when you're out in the heat and that about having stuff, but with the way things are now, they've got these great little packs that you can, it has like a little ice pack in it, so if you are taking something that might, I'm not trying to take away from the business of the golf course. I know the carts are coming around, but if you want to have your own little snack, you can pack something in there for yourself. Just make sure that it's got some sort of a little ice pack with it if it's some sort of a perishable. But he talked about, making sure that you have enough golf balls in there, tees, your repair tool, gloves, and also a sweater, a very light sweater or even a light jacket, just in case if the weather changes, gets a little cool depending on where in the country you're playing. And obviously you want to make sure you've got your golf umbrella because you never know. Even if you're driving in a cart, sometimes the rain gets a little bit heavy if you're out there and you get caught in. What are some other things that we need to do to make sure that we're prepared?
Oh, goodness. You just listed most of the ones I think that are most important.
Right.
I think just being prepared is, having awareness of, your surroundings, who's playing in front of you, just, being alert. You always want to be careful out on the golf course with people swinging the clubs and balls potentially going different places, just kind of know your surroundings. When it comes to the food and everything, one thing that I like to pack, or if, one of the girls comes around in a beverage cart or getting it there in the snack bar, is almonds. I think almonds are really good for you, and they're a real good stabilizer. They give you, good amount of protein, but like trail mix, bananas, almonds, or a peanut butter sandwich, just not with anything on it, just bread and peanut butter, give you kind of a mix of the protein and carbs. Those are really good things, and just drinks that don't have too much sugar. And you don't want to drink too much. That's another thing. I think I have a small bladder, so I don't drink too much when I'm playing golf.
Right.
Even if it's really hot, I still drink enough fluid to get me through the round. But I definitely like to know where the restrooms are out on the course. So that's why arriving early, you can ask all these things, because if you get there in your rush, you're not going to know anything. And then if you have to use a restroom, you're going to be stuck on hole number 2 or 3 and say, oh my gosh, do I turn back? What do I do? And I don't like those scenarios. So anyway.
No. Yeah, I hear you.
Few ideas.
Well, exactly, and I'm all for that as well. I think that you need to, that's part of the preparation and being, golf ready. And one of the other things too that, and I'm not trying to put a damper on anybody's fun. I mean, I know a lot of the courses that serve alcohol and things like that, and I don't begrudge somebody if they want to have a drink, but particularly down here in Meredith, I know you can back me up on this. Down here in the south, I mean, it gets hot, especially in the heat of the summer. I mean, I know that sometimes up in Chicago and New York and that they can have their share of heat waves, but it's nothing like down here in the south. And, if you're out in the golf course, especially the guys, I think that the ladies are a little smarter than this, but some of the guys, they think it's, hey, let's have a party. We're out here having fun. And, there are 2 or 3 beers before they get to the 9th hole. And besides becoming obnoxious and slowing things up, they're not replenishing with proper fluids, and they're getting dehydrated. And if you're playing out here and it's 90 degrees plus and you got humidity, which is, around the 90 plus range, you're asking for trouble. And again, I'm not trying to
absolutely,
I'm not trying to put a damper on it, but you know what? I'm a firm believer. I mean, I've never been one. I won't lie and say I've never done it, but I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've taken a drink during a round of golf, and it's because I want to enjoy it. And to me, go into hole number 19 and sit and have a few drinks at that point, and talk about the round and talk about whatever you want and enjoy it then. In a nice, cool, air-conditioned clubhouse, as opposed to, drinking it out on the golf course. And I'm just, to me, I'm just a firm believer of you need to be smart when you're out there, because you get a few holes away from that clubhouse, and if you've had a few drinks and you, and that dehydration start coming in, then you've got a whole another scenario on your hands, and it's just not a good situation. And I've seen it happen firsthand. So.
Oh, I have too. In fact, I actually was a beverage girl through college. Yes, paid some of my college by beveraging. So I have poured many drinks, and I have hustled many men on drives. But no, I agree with you. And one thing to think about is for every alcoholic beverage that you have out on the golf course, you need to follow up with 1 bottle of water. because out
Exactly.
here with the humidity, you got to have a balance. So, with dehydration, you usually are not aware that you're dehydrated. But with alcohol, it makes you more dehydrated, as well as having the heat and your body working harder. And it actually can make your heart pound a lot faster, alcohol.
Right.
When you're out there in the heat. So that water, your body, your heart needs the water, and your blood vessels and all of that. So again, if you're going to drink, you just got to be careful. Follow up with a bottle of water. So if you're out there and you have 2 or 3 drinks, make sure you're drinking water in between those drinks, or taking a couple sips of water along with the alcohol to make sure you're staying hydrated.
Right, and that works, obviously, most people don't drink a lot of this out in the course, certainly not down here, but, even if you are not a drinker, but maybe you're a coffee person, you like to have a coffee out there, especially early in the morning, that's not a problem, but the same thing applies there, because the coffee, as most of you I'm sure know by now with all of the nutrition information out there, coffee is a diuretic. And it kind of works under the same principles as alcohol. It kind of
Absolutely.
Works in your system, and if you have a couple of cups of coffee before you go out there and you don't have some water to sort of replenish, it can also dehydrate you a little bit as well. So, and especially when you get out into that hot weather. So guys, again, not to damper things, certainly want you to have an enjoyable round, but be prepared when you're going out there. Make sure you pack appropriately for the round, again, and make sure you've got enough of the golf balls and things like that. And I always recommend, take some weather gear with you. There's a lot of great stuff out there that's very light. It can be rolled up, or if you're, in most of the courses now that you're driving, you can stuff it in an extra little bag if need be, and take it in the back of the cart. Just remember to take it with you when you leave, or somebody's going to have a nice new outfit when they clean out the golf cart. But that's something that you need to do to make sure you're prepared. And those are some of the things. Can you think of anything else, Meredith, that maybe we've forgotten that to get golf ready for a round?
Yes, relax and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you relax and you go with an attitude to have fun, your game will be so much better, and you're going to be, your arms, your shoulders, your hands, everything's going to be nice and loose. And you got to be loose playing golf. You need loose hands. You don't want to grip too tight. You want everything nice and loose, and go out there and have a good time.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. And that's one of the things that, I want to really be focusing on with this program on Golf Talk Live is really helping people. This information is out there. You can surf a lot of blogs and things, and all this information is out there. But this is one of the things I want to talk about on here, on the program, is talking about, how to really get ready to be prepared. And obviously in our next segment, we're going to talk about some of the faults that a lot of golfers make in their rounds. Going to be some different topics, obviously, but that's one of the things that I want to do with this program, is really to sort of educate the golfer and help them have a better round, because I think a lot of people get frustrated. They're not really, when they're surfing through these magazines, or, as I said, online and that sort of thing, they're just sort of looking for some quick tips, and they're not really understanding it. And I think that in this day of technology, everybody wants that information fast, and but they also want to be able to listen to people that have got the experience, and it's not always possible. And you're always leery, too, sometimes you get onto these different sites and things, leery about what information you're getting. And obviously you want to make sure you're visiting some good quality sites. But Meredith, before we get into the second sort of segment here, just quickly let people know how they can get in touch with you if they want to, your website and that sort of thing. And also if somebody's interested in lessons, how they can get a hold of you or where they can contact you.
Sure. Anybody can contact me on my website. It's meredithkirk.com. My contact information's on there, and then also the information about the magazine is on there as well. endlessgolfmag.com. You can go check out the magazine, and that's the best way for people to get in touch with me.
Yeah, and I certainly recommend it. As I said, I've kind of followed Meredith along the way. That's why I know that she's made a lot of changes, just continued to grow over these last few years. I've followed her on a lot of the different media social sites like Facebook and things like that, and I'm very familiar with her website. And as I was kidding her off air, it's changed, and obviously it keeps improving. I thought it was a great site when it first came out, but it just seems to and I know that you do obviously in your blog you do a lot of tips and things like that people can sign up for. I guess it's like an e-newsletter. Is that the idea that you have available as well? People can do that when they're on the site?
Yes, it is. It's like a newsletter. So anytime I post something on there, they'll get an email in their inbox. And, I try to post tips a few times a month, or a video tip or something cool about golf, just to stay connected with my students and my followers. So it's a lot of fun.
And just to let you know, I'm not just saying this, but I get your emails all the time. So I made sure I signed up for that, and I've been getting that for a little while now. So they're great. They're great tips. Yeah, they're great tips, folks. So make sure that you visit her website at meredithkirk.com and sign up for that, and you'll get that information directly in your inbox.
And also I have, my book. My book is on the website as well. So some people are always asking me, where can I find your book? I have a page on the website that has information on how to order my book, Thy Club and Thy Staff, and so people can go there and check that out as well.
Tell me a little bit, before we go into this next segment, tell me a little bit about the book.
The book came out in the spring of 2011. It's called Thy Club and Thy Staff, and I took it from a Bible verse, and I actually changed the club from the staff. That's Psalm 23. Right. So I switched those around and named it that. I went through radiation of my thyroid about 4 or 5 years ago, and I had Graves' disease and had a life-threatening condition called a thyroid storm, and I couldn't play golf for about a year or two, and it was really tough. And just started walking the golf course slowly, couldn't really exercise much, and God just kind of laid on my heart to write a devotional that pertained to golf and God and having a relationship with God. And it just it really was for me. I started writing out these devotionals, and one of my friends said, hey, this is pretty cool stuff. You should try to get this published. And so I went ahead and went forward with that, and it's a faith-based book about golf and having a personal relationship with God. So that was a really fun endeavor that I did a few years ago, and I'm still getting, some really great feedback about that, and it really makes me feel good, because my goal was, if I could change one person's life, then the book was worth it. And I feel like at that point I have. So I'm really happy about that.
Well, and that was one of the other reasons I wanted to have you on the program, Meredith, because I, like you, am I believe in God helping all of us if we choose to let Him. And He opens that door for us very early on, and some don't sort of walk through that door until much later in life, and sometimes it takes a major change for that to happen. But I knew that that's where the book was going with that. And if you wouldn't mind, in addition to a copy of the Endless Golf magazine, I would love if you could send me a copy of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, if you send me the information, I'm going to put a link up on my website that will backlink to yours, so that people that are visiting my sites and obviously here on Golf Talk Live that wish to get a copy of that book can do so.
Awesome. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm all about helping others. I'm much like you in the sense that if I can do something to help somebody else, even if I don't get anything directly in return, just the satisfaction of knowing that I've helped somebody else through their journey and walk through life is reward enough. So I'm always happy to help somebody do that. So
that's great. And that's what life. I always tell my children this. That's what life's about. I believe God put us here on earth not just for us to find pleasure in the things we want to find pleasure in. God put us on earth for a reason, and He gives all of us unique gifts and talents and abilities, and we're all different, and we're supposed to utilize those. And if we don't utilize those every day on a daily basis, then we're not living to our fullest. And, for you and I, we love golf, and we have some talents and abilities with golf that God's given us, and we're utilizing it, and that's what you and I are supposed to be doing. And anybody listening, you have gifts and you have abilities, and you need to be using them, not just for yourself, but use them for other people, because, as you know, Ted, when you use your gifts and abilities to serve other people, all of your needs will be met. And that's one thing I have found. I'm totally fulfilled when I'm serving others using my gifts and talents that God has given me. It's the way to really living life in its truest form.
Well, and and
there's my little speech for today. How about that?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. You go with that one. I love it. The other thing too is just sort of along that lines is, I was always told, and when I looked at it in my earlier years, I used to look at it as a criticism, but people always said to me, you've got the gift of gab and this sort of thing, and lo and behold, here I am, hosting a talk show, and I just have always been somebody that enjoys talking and obviously do listen, but I enjoy talking and engaging in conversation with people, and I've always been very friendly with people and wanting to meet and just enjoy conversation with those. But it's always, in a positive light. I'm not interested in, in all the negative spin that you hear out there, and that's one of the reasons why I sort of got the gumption, if you will, to do this program. I mean, obviously I love golf and I love teaching and love doing other areas of it, but this is something that I had thought about long and hard for years and really wanted to find a niche if I could to do a program, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I just thought, I love golf, I enjoy the game, and I want to further it and better it and help, a lot of people out there if I can over time. But like you said, even if I can help that one person, that's reward enough. And, with technology, you can do so many things now, and this program is one way of me bringing that gift of being able to converse with people and help people and make even a bigger and better awareness to the sport, because I think it's a great golf. Obviously, mirrors life in many, many ways, as you know, and I think a lot of people that get brought to the game will see that and will be able to. It's a great therapy too for somebody that's going through a difficult time, and it's something that really is a game and a sport that you can really do at any age. I mean, I've golfed with junior golfers, and I've golfed with what I would call some super seniors, and it's just something that as long as you've got that gumption inside of you and that drive and willingness to do it, whether you're hopping around the course, you've got to drive around the course or what have you, it's a game really for everybody, where a lot of sports, once you sort of get to a certain plateau of life, it's very difficult to do because it's too physically demanding.
Absolutely.
So that's sort of my pitch for the evening is that's what I want to do, and God has certainly opened the doors for me along the way. So let's move into the second phase, if we will, and let's talk about some of the faults that the average golfer makes in a round. And I'm just going to, again, read through a couple of things, and we'll go back and talk about them. One is not being, and we kind of talked a little bit about this, we won't spend too much time, but not being prepared for the round, sort of rushing, et cetera, driving up 5 minutes before they play and just not getting themselves ready. Another one is club selection. You touched a little bit about this in a comment earlier, selecting the driver too much. We'll cover that. And number three is really second-guessing your shots. And I think you understand where I'm going with that one. Number four, I had not moving on. In other words, remembering past mistakes. So if you made a mistake on the previous hold, move on. Don't focus and dwell on that. And we'll expand on that even more. Number five is poor execution, and that's really lack of practice and things like that, but not really executing the shots properly. And I think number six, which is probably really should be number one, and that is unrealistic expectations on yourself. In other words, if you're a 25 handicapper, don't be expecting to be crushing it down the middle of the fairway every time or, sinking a bunch of one putts all the time. Be realistic to your game. That doesn't mean you're not going to improve and that you can't do things to improve, but be realistic in your own game, and I think you'll enjoy the round and you're not going to put as much pressure on yourself. So, Meredith, let's go back to number one. Not being prepared, and again, we won't spend too much time on that one because we kind of touched on it on the last one of getting golf ready. But what are some things that we need to do, let's say the average golfer, in preparing for a round?
Well, I think taking a look at the course that you're playing, if you can just kind of know the layout and in your mind get an idea of how you plan on executing your shots, and it just kind of sets the stage for, when you get to a hole, you're not like, okay, now what is this? This is a par 3, this is a par 4. You kind of have an idea of what the holes look like, and you kind of map out in your mind before you play how you're going to play. Because I believe going into golf and playing is a lot about what your intentions are. And you really, set a formula for your game a particular day when you check out that course and you review it, and you know where the pins are at. Are the pins back? Are they forward? Or are they center? These are all important aspects of the game that you need to take in consideration when you play.
Exactly, and actually, and this is the other reason why you want to show up early, because you can go into the pro shop, and usually if they're not too busy, they'll give you some tips for the day. Like I know on most, depending on where you're playing, a lot of the scorecards will tell you, by either color coordinating, it might be yellow, red, or so forth, or white. Will tell you where the pin placement generally is. But a lot of times, if you talk to them in the pro shop, they'll tell you a little bit about some of the areas on the course to be careful of, certain holes that have a lot of hazards and that sort of thing. And I mean, you don't want to be bogging your mind down, but if you go there early enough and study the course a little bit, and you can do that a lot of times. Most of the really good courses that you're playing, and even a lot of the public courses now, have some great cards and great little bits of information on the course itself. So you can kind of make notes, and that's what the pros do in their practice rounds, and that's essentially what they're doing. Is when they're playing these practice rounds, they're not doing it because they need the practice. They're doing it because they're mapping out the course.
Exactly.
And, we can do that as sort of regular golfers, if you will. You can go out there and kind of do the same thing. I mean, obviously, you're not going to go out and play a practice round, but you can sort of prepare yourself, and as Meredith said, get familiar with the course ahead of time and get some idea of how the holes are playing or how they're set up, so that you can kind of draw a mental picture of how you want to play each of those holes, as opposed to just like you said, showing up and saying, okay, well, this is a par 3 or this is a par 4, and what do I do? You're already prepared in your mind how you're going to play that hole.
Yeah, exactly. If you're looking at a par 5 that's really challenging and you want to play really conservative, and then following that par 5 is, let's say, a really easy par 3, in your mind you can kind of say, I could be a little bit more aggressive on this par 5 because I know it's following up with this par 3 that I'm going to feel more confident on. So it's really like your mindset. Again, it changes the game when you start mapping out how you're going to play and just course management.
Yeah, and that really is the key thing. Is course management is something that the average golfer really lacks a lot of. The pros have for the most part, have got it down like a science. I mean, some better than others, obviously, but the pros have been working on that. Obviously, nobody I can think of better than Jack Nicklaus is probably one of the best. Certainly, I know Tiger has been compared to him, and some people think he's better, some think not. But I personally think Jack, at least from the men's standpoint, was probably one of the best prepared mentally of any of the golfers that I've ever watched in my lifetime. And that was really, I mean, he certainly wasn't the best ball striker. I mean, he was certainly good and could hit it a long way, but he wasn't the longest, and he wasn't always the most accurate with some of his shorter irons, particularly his wedges and that. But he was a phenomenal putter, which helped. But he was mentally prepared. He knew where he was going, and he mapped that out in his mind, how he was going to play each of the holes. And he didn't focus on the trouble. He didn't focus on what he was going to do wrong. He focused on how do I execute whatever his game plan might happen to be, and that's why he was successful.
Right.
Number 2 is club selection, and you touched on this earlier, as I mentioned. I think a lot of people have just bought into and again, it's the campaigns and the marketing of some of the manufacturers and pushing these big drivers, and everybody pulls out the big driver and wants to belt it, and that's great to a certain degree. Like you said, on par 5, you need to get that distance, but I think club selection is another mistake that people make, and it's not just the driver, but for instance, maybe you're 150 yards out, and for the average player that might be a 7-iron, let's say, for the average golfer that maybe doesn't hit quite as far. But you'll see some people pull out their 8 and their 9-iron, and they're really having to step on it just to get to that distance. And the reason they're doing it is because they're seeing somebody on TV, or they're seeing their playing partner. Maybe he's a bigger hitter, and he's pulling at his 9er, so they're going to try it. So club selection is a big one. What are some other areas in that field there that you think?
I would say, putting, what your putter looks like. There's so many different types of putters, and, putting's so important. You have to really love your putter. And I always tell my students, if you do not love your putter, trade it in and get one you love. Be in love with that putter, because that is the one that's going to make all your strokes for you. And there's so many different types of putters. The putter heads, you have those old school blades, you have the mallets, you have so many choices. And then, a lot of the tour players now are using the oversized grips, which I'm starting to like those. But, you really need to love your putter. If you want to be most friendliest with any club, learn how to use that club.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The putter is something that I've always, when I was younger and that, I would just sort of whatever came my way, whether my dad, handed something down or whatever. So you kind of had to play with whatever you got. But now that, I'm spending my own money, so to speak, I want to make sure that I really think about it. And people will sit there and, there's sort of two camps. There's those that'll buy purely on the fact that this particular manufacturer, when it comes to their driver, let's say they're going to play this particular manufacturer's driver, they're not going to deviate in any way, shape, or form. And with the putter, it's entirely different because it's more of a feel. You have to be comfortable over that putt. And if you're playing something that you're not comfortable with, as you said earlier, that takes up a lot of strokes in your game. I mean, your driver, like you said, you might hit 14 times in a day, in a round, but your putter, you could hit many more times depending on how comfortable you are and how solid you are with your stroke. And if you're playing with a piece of equipment that you're not really feeling, shall we say, for lack of better words, you're just not going to feel comfortable over those putts.
Right. Last week I played golf with a local pro, and I actually gave my son my putter and forgot to replace it with another putter I had. I have about 5 different ones. And so I went out to the golf course, and I was unprepared, Ted. I was unprepared.
Yep.
I did not have a putter in there. I thought I had it in there. So at any rate, this pro I was playing with, he's like, just use mine. So I used his putter, and I loved his putter, and I'm like, what is this? Where did you get this? He's like, you're not going to believe this. He's like, I paid $40 for this putter.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, it does not matter. It just totally solidified my belief.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much you spend on a putter. You can go into a golf store, spend $20, $30, $40. If you like the putter, then keep it. Keep it as long as you want. You don't feel pressured into buying a putter just because you have to have a new gadget. It really, I played with one putter. My first putter my dad gave me when I was 6 years old, and it had these little butterflies all over it. I played with that putter until I was 26 years old, and I just got the shaft changed out of it, and these little butterflies all over it. I mean, it probably was a $15 putter, and I played some of the best rounds of my life with this putter. So, it just goes to show it doesn't matter. You got to be comfortable with your equipment.
That's right. Now, the real question before we move on to the next one, Meredith, did you give the putter back?
I did give it back, and the only reason why I gave it back is he did have an oversized grip on it, which I do like, but it was a little bit too big for my little hands. So in my head, I thought, you know what? I'm going to try to hunt down one of these $40 putters and just get a medium-sized grip on it. So, yeah, it certainly changed my perspective.
You could have just had it regripped. You realize that.
I could have taken that and just put a $10 grip on it. Yeah, I wasn't thinking. I just maybe had a blonde moment.
Yeah. But you're so right. I mean, and too many people fall into that trap. And here's really a good test. And I'm going to talk about the clubs in general, but before I go on to the next one, people feel that they have to have the biggest and the best and that in equipment. And it's been proven time and time again, if you've got sound fundamentals, you can pretty much I want to digress here a little bit because I know that you do need to be you should be properly fitted and things like that. But theoretically, you can play a good round of golf with just about any set of clubs if you know what you're doing and know how to use those clubs. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be playing your best because really you do need to be fitted and so forth. But you should be able to pretty much play with anything. And unfortunately, the trap that a lot of people get into, Meredith, is they will go out and they'll buy this expensive driver. They'll go out and buy the top irons and expensive putter, and they get out there and they just don't have the game to support it. And then the next thing you know, they're throwing this $3,000 set of golf clubs into the local pond because they just can't play. So, that $40 putter might not have cost them a lot, but if it's comfortable, as you said, and they can play well, they're going to go out and enjoy the round much more than if they spend $150 on a putter that they don't like, that they're really not as juiced up about, and they end up double bogeying half the holes because they're just not comfortable with it. They're going to end up tossing that away and buying another $150 putter in order to replace it.
Right, and I have a lot of students that they don't have the best equipment for their swings. And one thing I would suggest would be, making sure that the lie angle for your irons is close to what you need. I mean, for example, if I have a student that's 2 degrees upright, and she's playing with really flat irons, there's going to be some issues with even if she has good fundamentals, there's going to be some issues. But, what I tell my students is this: you don't have to go out and buy new clubs. You can go get them bent. You just take them to a local golf shop and you get them bent. It saves you a lot of money. And you can get new shafts. Sometimes, you can just, if the head works, get a new shaft. It's still cheaper than going out and buying new clubs. So there's lots of ways around equipment, and we don't have to be kind of fooled into this belief that, we got to have the new stuff. No, you don't. You don't have to have the new stuff. I mean, I bet if you gave Tiger Woods an old set of Nicklaus clubs, he might not play his game. He's going to play really well, though. I mean, really, he's not going to probably win a championship that way. But he still has the talent. He still has the good fundamentals, like you said. But again, just getting the lie angles checked. You can change out the shaft. There's ways around it to save a lot of money.
Exactly. For those of you that are just tuning in a little bit late here into the program, I'm on with my special guest, Meredith Kirk, owner of Meredith Kirk Golf. And we're just talking about some of the faults that the average golfer makes in their round. And that was really talking a little bit about club selection, sometimes not selecting the right clubs and or having the right equipment. But this next one here is the third one here is second-guessing the shots. And a lot of times this is something that we see quite often on tour, on all the tours, whether it's the PGA or the LPGA or even the Champions Tour, where you'll see a player will walk up, he'll think, okay, this is my 8-iron, I need to pull out here, and I'm going to take this shot. And then you'll see him back away, and he'll select another club. You need to have a certain amount of confidence in your ability, and that can only really be found by getting out and practicing on the range on a regular basis so that you know what your abilities are with each of your clubs, so that when you're getting up over a shot, you're not second-guessing that shot all the time. And a lot of people do that. They'll grab 2 or 3 clubs, and they'll just sort of, I think this is my 5-iron I'm going to hit here. They'll get up, and they'll find out it wasn't the 5-iron. They needed the 6-iron or the 7 or something else. So second-guessing the shots, I think, is another area that a lot of regular golfers or average golfers, a mistake they make is they're second-guessing. They're not confident in what they're doing, and that's through a lack of practice and lack of ability.
Mm-hmm. I think that going into golf, being double-minded, when you're playing at that level, is very challenging. I tell my students, you have to commit to what your intention is for the shot. And if you fail to execute that commitment to what your intention is, then it's okay. But at least you did not go into the shot double-minded. Better to go into the shot and take that risk of, hey, okay, this is how I see the shape of this shot. This is what I want. I'm 100% in it, and I'm going to execute it. Going in with that attitude is much better than being double-minded, because once you start backing off, you start doubting yourself. And to be a successful golfer, a champion golfer, you got to have that left side of the brain, which is our ego orientation. You really got to have that activated. And when you start to be double-minded, it's really that right side of the brain is fighting the left. So you need to take control as a golfer, especially competitive. This is more to the competitive level, but you have to take control, and you tell yourself, no, I'm 100% in it. I see the shot. I know where that ball's going, and I'm committed. And if you fail, at least you fail with 100% commitment.
Yeah, and that's a really big thing, and it certainly applies obviously at a higher level, but even for the average player, I think what ends up happening with a lot of them is they get too, as you say, double-minded. They get too many things going on in their head that and it zaps their confidence. And what ends up happening is they get over the shot unsure of what they want to do. They don't have a game plan, if you will, for that particular shot. They're not focused on what they need to do, and they're second-guessing. And rather than having that one swing key to get the momentum going, now they've got 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 different things going on in their head at the same time, and that's a recipe for disaster right there in itself. So you're right exactly when you say that. You need to make the selection, stand up there with 100% confidence that this is, like you say, the ball flight that you want. This is the shape of the shot. This is the result you want to, you're wanting to achieve, and commit to it. And as you said, even if it doesn't come out exactly the way you planned, that's okay. You can recover and you can work on the next shot, and that's really what you need to do. And I think most people miss that boat. They get too, jumbled up in too many thoughts and end up having a poor round as a result.
Yes, and golf, can be very intimidating, and sometimes it can be so intimidating that it seems like it has a power over you, a control over you. And I think that when, as a golfer, and what I teach is you have power over golf. You can do whatever you want with that golf ball. You have the power and ability to do what you want. And it's what your intentions are, and it's making a commitment. And also on the putting green, you don't want to you don't want to back off ever. I'd rather see the ball go past the hole than to back off. Again, it's you want commitment on the green as well. You're in control of your own game, and you have the power to change the game.
Excuse me. And what you often see on the putting surface, especially with your higher handicappers, you'll see that, and you can almost read it in their face. They're standing up there, they're nervous, their knees are knocking. I mean, that's more figuratively than literally, but you'll see that expression in their face that they're not comfortable over the shot, and it's because they haven't made that commitment. They haven't, really sat back. You see them doing the plumb bob and doing all these things that everybody else they mimic on TV, but they're really not committed to that shot. And they get over that putt, and the next thing you know, it either falls short or it goes a mile past. And it's because they're not really thinking about what it is they want to do and then committing to that shot. And you're right. I mean, it goes everywhere. It's not just the long shots, but it's on the putting surface as well. And that's an area that I see so many club golfers particularly make that mistake. And I think that that's one of the primary reasons that a lot of people, out of frustration, end up leaving the game, because they're just too focused on trying to get everything just perfect and not realizing a game is, I mean, even at your level and my level and at the top professionals levels, it's a game that we all grow into, and you're never going to, even Tiger Woods is never going to achieve greatness, if you will, in the sense that it's always going to be a learning experience. You're never going to sort of get to the top and that's it, and there's nowhere to go. There's always something new and something more and challenging along the way, and if you don't sort of adhere to that, then you're going to get frustrated.
Absolutely. I mean, golf is a lifelong journey, and there's so many variables that can change. And if you just take the approach of each shot, just not thinking about, what just happened or what's going to happen. The biggest thing, and I think that's the biggest thing in life too, really, staying in the present moment. Only thinking about the shot you're getting ready to take and not allowing any negative thoughts to come in your mind. Or what if I do this? What if I miss this? What if I hook it? What if it goes in the water? What if we have to get away from that mindset of, it's more, what if this ball goes in? But again, it's staying positive and accepting that, golf is always changing. It could be it could be a windy day out there. What are we going to do then, huh?
Yeah, it's really, exactly. It's positive reinforcement's what needed. And that was a great lead into the next portion of it, and that is not moving on or remembering past mistakes. And that's, again, what a lot of people end up doing is, maybe on that par 5, they ended up, it should have been an easy par 5, but they've bogeyed it or even double bogeyed it, and it's because they didn't take time to really think that hole out. And now what they're doing is they're now going into that, as you said, that easy par 3 maybe, and now they're upset and disgruntled, and it should be a relatively easy par or even birdie, and now they end up bogeying or double bogeying that hole as well, because they're carrying on that past from the previous hole and carrying it into the next hole. So what are some things that really we need to focus on, or that we can help the average golfer out there focus on that area about not dwelling on past mistakes?
This is a great topic, because this is how golf parallels life. And that's why I love the game so much. And, I wrote a little bit about this topic in my book, but, golf it can bring out the best in us, and it can bring out the worst in us. And for me personally, golf can bring out things in me that I'm like, wow, I actually do that in life too. So sometimes when you hang on to something, you have trouble letting it go. It just festers and it builds. And, people with those personality types who allow that, they might struggle with golf. But I think that if you can learn to, that saying, letting go, truly letting go of what just took place, it's the best remedy for good golf, and it's the best remedy for life. There's nothing we can do one hole previously to fix. It's done and over with. And when we come to that point of acceptance of, hey, you know what? It's done. It's over. I can only deal with what's in front of me right now. So you put yourself in a very powerful place in life, on the golf course, because you're living in that present moment. What can I do right now in this moment to make the best of where I'm at? And when you come to that place, when you get to that epiphany in your mind, you can say, you know what? I'm on a par 3. I don't even care what I did. That hole's over. I don't care if I double bogeyed it or a triple bogeyed it. You know what? This is an easy hole, and I'm going to have fun playing it. And when you stay in that moment, you'll start to find that over time, hanging on to previous holes that could be negative will start to go away. It's a skill, and it's a habit, and that's why, there's many tour players that have this issue. Think about it. When they're coming in, when you're watching a major on TV and they're coming in the last 3 or 4 holes, this is when you can kind of tell how their personality is. Because sometimes they have trouble letting go. If they have a bad hole, then they have another one, and then they're going in, and they end up going from 2nd place to 10th place. But this is an area that I think all people need to work on. You let go of the past, let it go. You can't change it. You can only work on the present moment. And I just love that, because really golf it's an amazing sport because you learn so much about yourself too.
Well, and also too, Meredith, I think that, you're exactly right. It does, mimic life in so many ways. And what a lot of the average golfer does, and this is something that I've tried to instill in some of the students that I've taught over the years, is, you might have failed that particular hole, but you're not a failure. And, you have to look at it in a sense that once that once that ball drops into the cup on that particular hole, that hole is done. Right. So there's no point in dwelling on it. You can't change, short of cheating, you can't change the score. If you've got a 5 or a 6 or a 3 or whatever it happens to be, that's the score. And if it's a positive, that's fantastic. Keep the momentum going. And if it's something that maybe isn't a positive, then turn it into one. Learn from that experience and say, okay, you know what? I didn't play my best golf in that particular hole, but that's okay. I know what mistakes I made. Make a note of it on that hole so that you can work on those things when you get to the practice range next time, but then leave it go and you're on to the next hole. Because what ends up happening, and you hit this right on the head, is it'll start with one hole and then they'll take it into the next one, next thing 2 or 3, and next thing the whole round is sort of in the garbage can because they've let it fester and brew up through the whereas it might have originally started with just one bad hole, but it's now turned into 2 to 3, and now the whole round is shot. And that's what a lot of golfers, I think, end up doing, is they're focusing on the round as opposed to each hole one by one and then letting the round be the result.
Exactly. And, it's a hard skill to learn, but when you learn it, it really is amazing. And I think going into golf before you tee off, just accepting that, no round is perfect. No round of golf is perfect. Even if you shoot a 66, you're still going to go back and say, but if I made that 4-foot putt on hole number 13. There's always a what if. We are not perfect beings. We're not perfect. No. We're imperfect human beings. But if we go in with a mindset of, I'm going to play the best for today. This is my best for today. This is my best for that hole. I gave my best. If you ask one of your students if they had a triple bogey, did you give your best on that hole? And if they can say yes, then that they need to move on. Well,
and that's half the battle. Move on. That's the crux of it right there. If they did their best on that hole, but maybe circumstances or maybe poor execution or something like that, that's something they can work with. But if they didn't give their best on that shot or on that particular hole and ended up having a bad score, then that's a whole different thing. Because if you're going in with a negative, inference already that I know I'm going to do rotten on this hole because I did the last 3 holes, then you might as well just pack it up and turn around, like you say, just like you did with the with the texting and the cell phone, is go back to the office. Because if you go in with that negative mindset in anything you do in life, you're already setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly. And, one quick way to get out of it, and I've done this myself, is really to have an attitude of gratitude. I know it sounds crazy. Well, how can I have an attitude of gratitude if I have a bad hole, and I start to develop a bad attitude on the course? Well, it's quite simple. We as human beings, we control our own emotions, not our external environment, not a person, not a thing. We control our emotions, and because we have that power and ability to control our emotions, we can determine the state of mind and the frame of mind that we want to be in. Therefore, when things are going negatively, the best way to fight back that negativity is to start thinking about things you're grateful for. Even if it's on the course, even if it's just looking around at the course and seeing God's beauty. I mean, just amazing beauty of being on a golf course. Sometimes it puts things in perspective. It minimizes negative things, and it highlights positive things, and you can quickly change your frame of mind just by having an attitude of gratitude.
Exactly, and I'm a firm believer of that as well. I mean, there's been days when I've been out, especially in earlier years, where my game wasn't quite up to snuff, and I'd be out there and it'd get me a little bummed out and that, but then I would pick myself up. And I can remember playing with some of my friends and that didn't play a lot of golf, but we would go out and just watching them play and their reactions to things was just amazing, because I'd here we are, we're out on this beautiful golf course having a great time, and they're kicking up, turf and, stumping a club down here and there. And I'm like, guys, why? And these are friends I grew up with, so, I try to help them a little bit, but it's just the whole attitude is really the key to it. If you've got a rotten attitude and a negative attitude going into that round, it's going to carry out throughout that round. But if you go in with a positive round attitude and say, no matter whether I make good shots or bad shots, I'm going to have fun today. I'm going to enjoy it. And when I get back on the range, that's when I'm going to work out all the bugs and the glitches and things like that. Not while I'm out here. While I'm out on this golf course, I'm going to enjoy, as you say, God's beauty that He's given me, the ability to see and to be able to view all of this great landscape here and just enjoy it. And whatever will be. And then after the round, then I can do my assessment and say, okay, where did I fall short here? Or what do I need to work on? Maybe my short game's not playing well, and that's what I need to focus on when I go out to the range, next Tuesday or something like that. And that's really what I think a lot of golfers need to do, but don't do it.
Exactly.
Let me move on to the next one here. I was going to do poor execution, but it kind of fell into a little bit of the other one. The last one here that I've got is unrealistic expectations, and I think this is really a big one. There are a lot of people out there, I think, that just are not realistic with their game, and I'm not trying to pick on the high handicappers, but a lot of high handicappers get out there and they've got this big driver now. They can hit it 250 plus, and they're feeling pretty confident out there. And I know you'll be familiar with this when I mention it, but there's a program out there called Tee It Forward. A lot of guys get out to these courses, especially the men, and I'm gonna throw the men under the bus here because I think the ladies are a little smarter. But the guys out there that the testosterone's going and they're thinking, okay, I'm gonna belt this thing a mile, and they play back from the championship tees or the far back tees, and they can't even hit it up to the forward tees. And I'll see these people, and I'll think to myself, I know you paid $50, $100, $150 to play on this beautiful course, whatever the fee may have been. When they mean, to enjoy the round and get the most out of it, it doesn't mean you have to play every square inch of the golf course. And, they're unrealistic. They're not playing to their abilities. And there's nothing wrong with, if you're a solid player and you can hit the ball consistently, wanting to play and challenging yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're a 25 handicapper and you're playing from the back tees and you can barely hit it out, 200 yards and not straight, to boot, why are you playing from the back tees? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I do agree with you. Of course, I see that all the time. I guess to each his own. I mean, there's going to be people like that out there, and until a friend or somebody close to them can break the news like, hey, buddy, you need to move forward a little bit, they're probably going to continue in that. But I do see that. And actually, if they would kind of come to their senses a little bit, they really would enjoy golf so much more if they played from the appropriate tees, and it would give them a much better reading on what their true handicap is.
Well, and also, too, the other thing is it's not even just on the tees. To give you an example, let's take a par 5 as an example. I think most of the par 4s, most of the decent golfers out there, even some of the higher handicappers, they can fairly comfortably reach it in 2. Where you fall short is in the par 5, especially the longer ones. And you'll get somebody out there, and they're just not playing smart golf. They'll get out there and they'll hit their driver thinking that, okay, if I get the straight shot out there and get it down there 250 to 275 or whatever, their distance is, that I can try and make it in 2. Well, the shot might be, 530 or 550 yards or whatever it happens to be, par 5. And, if you're lucky enough to stripe one down the middle and you're hitting it a good distance, you might be able to reach it in 2 if you're a consistent player. But if you're not a solid or consistent player, you haven't got a hope in heck of reaching it in 2. And so already you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And this is what I mean by being unrealistic. You have to play to your game. So if you're going to play, from a further back tee, then be smart about it. Pick a club that you're going to get out there and lay up your second shot. Don't go for it in 2. Lay it up to a position that you can get in with a short iron like your wedge or even a 9-iron for that third shot if need be. So play smart, and that's where course management comes in. And these are some of the unrealistic things that I see, and I'm sure you see a lot of the same things with your teaching and so forth.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you pretty much, hit the nail on the head on that. I agree. They need to be realistic in what their game really is. And, it's probably hard for some golfers going out there to be realistic because, some of the people that go out only play 5, 6, 7 times a year. So they don't play enough to kind of know where they should be. And then, then you have those that just go out there and just want to try it because it makes them feel good.
Yeah, exactly. Meredith, let me just interrupt our segment here just for a quick second. We've got another caller that's called in that wants to come on and talk to us, so let's take them.
Great.
Good evening and welcome to Golf Talk Live. You're on with Ted and Meredith.
Hi, thank you. I'm enjoying the show. I wanted to comment a little bit on the tee it forward concept. I think it's a great idea. First of all, my name is Sean. I run a group on LinkedIn called Linked Golfers, and we talk about this quite a lot actually because the pace of our lives now requires us to be a little bit more concerned about our time. And I don't think it's so much that we have slow play golf as much as super fast lives now. But I've been playing with a group of people, in the evenings where there's not a whole lot of people around, but we're playing from the red tees, and it's really kind of an interesting situation because we experience a course we play a lot in a whole different way. So the shot making is from different areas of the course than we typically experience, and it's kind of a whole different game. And we challenge ourselves to play from those tees and try to score better, but oftentimes we score worse because we're not used to playing from there.
Well, and
we have the distance, but suddenly we find ourselves with a half club difference in in our wedge game or something, and it's just a different feeling, but it's good practice.
Well, right, and Sean, and that's where working at the range, not before your round, but some range time ahead of time can help you with that, so that you can understand. Like for instance, just to give you a quick example, Sean, is one of the players from sort of time gone by is Tom Kite, and he was one of the first people. And I talked about this on an earlier show. Was one of the first PGA players that started throwing in 3 and even 4 fourth wedge into his bag. And the reason he did that was because he understood the concept that you're not always going to have 100 yards into the green. You might have 75, you might have 85, you might have 65, whatever, or somewhere in between. And you need to have not only a club, but you need to understand those in-between shots. And by moving, as you just indicated, moving up to those red tees, instead of maybe normally having a 150-yard shot into the green, you've now got 135. and it may be in between clubs, so you're not used to playing from that position because you're used to playing, 15 or 20 yards back. And so it's good that you're doing that. And what's nice about it is you're being realistic. You're playing within yourself and within, you may have done it for different reasons, but as Meredith and I were just talking about, you want to be able to give yourself a fair chance and make it a fun and enjoyable experience. And if you're teeing it way back in the boonies, like a lot of these people are doing, you become frustrated, and you're not likely going to want to continue to play future rounds.
Yeah, and one thing that
I'm sorry, go ahead.
One thing that I will add is, I play from the middle tees, and sometimes I play from the ladies' tees, depending on my game. So I totally understand, Sean, what you're talking about is, when you move from the middle tees to the ladies' tees, because there are some courses, depending on the length of the course, that I would not dare move from the middle tees to the lady tees. One, I would barely be pulling out my driver, and if I was lucky, some of those shots I would have 3 wood. So I totally get that. And one thing I want to mention, earlier I mentioned slow play. I want to kind of rephrase that statement, only because I live in Myrtle Beach, and so we're like, the golf capital of the world. We have so many people here playing that one issue that we do have at times in this area is pace of play. And I think it's just because we're so saturated with so many people playing. But I certainly think outside of this area, slow play would not be one of those reasons. I just wanted to mention that.
Well, let me assure you.
I want to propose.
Meredith, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Sean. No, go ahead.
I have a bit of a lag here. I apologize. I just wanted to propose. Each one of the players in this group that's playing the red tees, they're all single-digit handicaps, and a couple of them are actually competitive players that hit a long way. But we're enjoying the diversity, and we're finding that we're so pre-programmed to think, okay, well, we're supposed to be this kind of person if we play from these tees. But we're just finding it almost like reshapes the course completely, and you have to exercise your brain and what your strategy might be during the round.
I think it's awesome that y'all are doing that.
Yeah, and that's a fun way too. For obviously, you're playing with a group that's at a higher skill level, and that makes it kind of fun and enjoyable to challenge yourself. Because if you're playing, especially if you're playing the same course and you're playing from essentially the same set of tees all the time, it gets a little bit boring because you're hitting kind of the same shots after shot. So moving up like that, maybe one set or even 2 sets of tees, depending on what you normally play from, gives you a little bit extra challenge, because now. Yeah, and that makes it fun. And that's really the other reason, too, that people need to kind of mix it up a little bit. But, the concept that we were talking about is playing unrealistic expectations. And that's what a lot of the regular golfers, I think, out there are doing, is they're not being smart in their play. And it all sort of encompasses into this, theory of the mental side of golf and game, your management of your game and things like that. And I think that people need to be realistic in what they're doing. And if they need to move up a set of tees, then that might be the choice that they need to make. If it's a matter of, spending more time practicing, whatever the case be, but be realistic within, play within yourself, in other words, is what I'm trying to say. And not playing because you're playing with a 1 handicap and you're maybe a 10 handicap. You can't play the same game that this person over here is playing, so play your own game, and that's what I mean by being realistic.
Yeah, play your own game and become a better putter. Make those putts, and you can beat that 1 handicap.
When these guys move up, too, they get overconfident. They think they're going to just tear the place up, and they actually shoot worse. So it's enjoyable from the cocky perspective, too.
Well, sure, and that's the whole. You're playing with a foursome of friends and things like that, or regular foursome. You can have some fun with it, and that's the thing that you want to be able to do. But Sean, I appreciate you calling into the program.
Yeah, thanks. Enjoying the show.
Glad to take your call.
Thanks,
and
Sean.
Meredith and I are going to wrap up here in a few minutes, because I know that I've actually kept her past her time. So, but again, Sean, I appreciate you calling into the program, and thanks for your insight.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Okay, Meredith, just to sort of finish off on our thoughts there, I think those are some great things. Is there anything else that you can think of that maybe we didn't cover, in some of the things some of the faults that the average golfer makes? Anything else that you can touch on?
Nothing that comes to my mind right now. I mean, I believe we covered some really good territory, and certainly we covered some of the most important aspects going into golf. So.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Just to let the listeners know that are tuning in here towards the end of the broadcast, my special guest this evening was Meredith Kirk, and we're going to be wrapping up here in a few moments. She is the owner of Meredith Kirk Golf, and also she is the vice president of a publication called Endless Golf. It's a Myrtle Beach mag, and you can get all of that information. She's also an LPGA member and USGTF Level 3 certified golf professional. And, of course, I want to throw this in, the mother of 3 boys, and that's a challenge in itself, I'm sure, but an enjoyable one. And you can reach Meredith if you want to get in touch with her. Check out her website. It's www.meredithkirk.com, and you can get her contact with her on her website if you want, if you're interested in either lessons or just watching some of the videos the video lessons that that she talked about earlier in the program. And just to let you know that for those of you that either tuned in late and missed a lot of it, or didn't get a chance or aren't going to get a chance to listen to the live broadcast, this broadcast is auto-recorded and will be available shortly on blogtalkradio.com /Golf Talk Live. So you can visit the link there and catch the program in its entirety. Unfortunately, you won't be able to call in live at that point because we'll be off the air. But Meredith, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you very, very much for coming on, and I apologize if I kept you beyond the time that you had allotted, but I was enjoying having you on as a guest, and I want to definitely have you back many, many more times. In fact, anytime you want to come back on, I would love to have you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the show, and look forward to coming back on again. That would be fun.
Yeah, and as I said to you earlier, both on and off the air, one of the things that I want to do with this in the new year, and I want to really have a bunch of other professionals and golf industry types on here between now and then, just to get a good pool to draw from initially, is a segment that we're going to run into the new year called Coach's Corner. And as I said to you, Meredith, earlier, this was something that I was originally going to do in just the form of a blog, and I decided that wouldn't be as fun or as interesting because you don't get a chance to chat with somebody like Sean that just called in, or Gypsy that called in earlier, get a chance for people to call in and say hello and give their thoughts and comments. And this is something that I want to do and have a lot of the instructors come on here onto the program, as I say, maybe 2 or 3 at a time, and let them sort of field some questions and interact with the listening audience. So I extend that invitation, as I have with all of the other professionals that have come on here, to be able to come on and participate in that. And I'll send out more information as it gets closer, so that you understand what's going to be involved and what you need to do in that. But I certainly hope that you'll participate in that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Count me in.
And as I said, Meredith, you can send that information. I'll email you my information in that, so you can. I'd love to get a copy of the book and also of the magazine. But if you can send me the particulars, and I will, and any sort of a logo or whatever, and I will post it up on my sites and that, so that people can find out. And if you want to give a quick plug again for your book before we go, please do so.
Okay, great. My book is called Thy Club and Thy Staff. You can order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can just Google it, and there's lots of different booksellers that have it available. Also, you can go to my website, meredithkirk.com, and find out more information on how to contact me. And if you're interested in golf tip videos, you can go to mbn.com. That's mbn.com. Click on the video center there, and I probably have about 25 golf videos. So if you're needing some golf tips, feel free to check out all my videos there.
Well, and let me just one more time reassure all of the listeners here that I have sampled a number of the videos that Meredith has had over the last few years that I've been following her, and there's certainly some great tips there. So anybody of all skill levels really can learn from those tips. So make sure you check those out at mbn.com.
Yes, mbn.com, and you just click on the video center, and you'll be redirected, and there's tons of videos on there. Enjoy them.
Okay. Well, we'll do. Again, Meredith, thank you very, very much for tuning in. those of you that are listening with my special guest. And Meredith, thank you very, very much for coming on the program. It's been a pleasure. And I hope, as I said, that you will come back many more times. You have an open invitation to come back anytime you want. And if there's anything in the future that you have, maybe a new book coming out or something like that that you want to let the folks know about, by all means, please contact me, and we'll set something up to have you come on again and promote that as well. But in the meantime, I want to thank you again for coming on. And you have a great evening and have a great rest of the week. Excuse me. My tongue's getting tired for talking so long. And again, thank you, Meredith.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, take care.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, for those of you that just tuning in, my special guest this evening was Meredith Kirk, and of Meredith Kirk Golf, and she is an LPGA member as well as a USGTF Level 3 certified golf professional. Great guest to have on the program. Had a lot of good insight. We covered a couple of main topics, but a lot of subtopics, if you will, in the program. How to get ready for golf, getting golf ready was the main first topic. And then also we talked about in the last segment of the program, we talked about some of the faults that the average golfer makes. So if you're interested and want to recap, you can certainly go back and probably in the next hour or so, it should compile all of the information for this program, and the recorded version of the entire program will be available at blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. And for those of you that want to call in the future, the program airs every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and normally runs till about 7:30 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. It really depends on what the topics we have to cover that evening, but generally is on for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. After that, I get too tired of talking anyway, so I have to cut it up beyond that point. But and if you've listened to this broadcast for the last little while, you know that that's not true. But anyways, if you want to email in questions in the future, you can also do so calling into the program. The number to call is 646-716-4667. Again, that number is area code 646-716-4667. You can call in and speak to us live during the broadcast. You can also email me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. So if you have questions that you want to email into the listeners, into the show and have put on, we will certainly do that, and or questions that you may have for my guests or myself about golf in general or about a specific topic we're covering that night. Also, I would really love it if you would pass this link around blogtalkradio.com//Golf Talk Live and let others know. I would appreciate, let your foursome know if you're playing in a foursome this weekend. Let them know about the program. If you tune in this evening, let them know that what we've got going here, and it's available every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Visit facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog. That's facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog. Visit our Facebook page. Throw a few likes my way. I'd really appreciate it. You can also post a comment on there if you've been listening into the program. If you've got some interesting topics that you'd like for me to cover here on Golf Talk Live, you can post them up on my Facebook page and let us know what your thoughts are there. I'm also on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. You can send me a tweet there and tweet me some questions through Twitter as well. Again, I want to thank my special guest, Meredith Kirk of Meredith Kirk Golf, for coming on here, and to all those great people out in Myrtle Beach that were listening in tonight. Thank you, and God bless. And just a fantastic lady. Enjoyed having her on. Just a wonderful person, and very spiritual like myself. And I just I feel very blessed to have her on this evening. Thank you again for tuning in. I will see you here the same time at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time next week here on Golf Talk Live. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. A great weekend. God bless. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. Thank you for tuning in to Golf Talk Live.